Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to discuss an important topic in gynecology, that is menopause. So, as the name indicates, meno from the periods, from the word, and pause means stop. So, it's the time when in the life of a female, the time comes when the cascade of menstrual activity it gets stopped. It has multiple implications on the health and life of a woman and her surroundings as well. So, therefore, to have a review and a knowledge regarding this phase of a life of a woman is very important, so that we can have a good comprehension and understanding of that aspect, and we are able to have the good management strategies in this phase of life for a woman. So, when we are discussing menopause, the three aspects which come in our mind are the menopause, perimenopause. I think with the name you have some idea what the terminology would mean, and then climacteric. So, what's the menopause? The state of an absence of menstrual periods for at least 12 months, 1 year, in the absence of other physiological causes or pathological one or the secondary causes at the time around 45 to 50 years. So when there is definitely absence of periods for 1 year, excluding all the other causes, and with at the certain age dimensions, then we can label it as menopause. So then what's the climacteric? It is the phase of waning ovarian activity. The definite menopause has not occurred yet, but it is the time period surrounding that period, and it is the ovarian activity has started to wane away slowly and gradually. That is climacteric. It is 2 to 3 years before and 2 to 5 years after menopause. So this period surrounding the period of menopause earlier as well a bit of years later, all these encompass in the dimensions of climacteric. And why it is important that the sign and symptoms and the different biochemical activities which affect the physiological as well as um, general health of a lady is very important to be of understanding. Therefore, we should need to be knowing about climacteric. So then comes the perimenopause. As the name indicates, it is a period of 3 years before menopause and followed by 1 year of amenorrhea. Don't get confused, like climacteric and perimenopause can be considered under the same heading as well, because the certain conditions which appear in these periods are the same, the certain signs and symptoms and the complaints associated with mild ovarian hormonal deficiency. It leads to anovulation and menorrhagia because the ovarian activity is waning off, and therefore the ovarian activity is also not of that functioning aspect, and it is in the declining phase. So the abnormalities also appears in the surges and in the levels of the different hormones which are produced by the ovaries, and therefore we encounter the cycles of anovulation, sometimes menorrhagia, sometimes of oligomenorrhea. So you can say that the irregularities are appearing. So what happens is that the perimenopause then leads to postmenopause. There are vast majority of menopausal symptoms which we are going to discuss in detail now, and then the last would be the menopause. So the age. Usual age is from 45 to 50 years of age, and average being 47 years. And the premature menopause before the 40 years of age, as we label it. And I think you are well aware about the premature menopause, where you have studied it in the domain of secondary amenorrheas. And the late menopause we label when the menstruation keeps to be there beyond the age of 52 years. So the usual age for menopause again would be around 45 to 50 years. The delayed menopause we label when there is due to good health and better nutrition. One of the causative factors can be when the menopause is delayed. It can be seen beyond 50 years of age. It is also seen in women with uterine fibroids. Um, the etiology can be that because of the fibroids show an hyperestrogenized state in a lady. So this hyperestrogenized state may even prolong or may even delay the appearance of menopause as well. So also it is in the women with high risk of endometrial cancer. When there is a delayed menopause, you should keep in mind a risk of endometrial malignancy, also for whom the risk factor is in hyperestrogenic states. So menopausal age is directly also associated with smoking and genetic disposition. And smoking induces the premature menopause, uh, and reliable studies have proved it. So what's the pathophysiology in the menopause? During climacteric, the ovarian activity declines. Initially, ovulation fails, and no corpus luteum forms. No progesterone is secreted by the ovaries, and thus there is no ovulation. So, how the ovarian activity declines? Initially, the corpus luteum is not forming, no progesterone is there. Later, the Greffian follicles fail to develop. Estrogenic activity decreases, and endometrial atrophy is leading to amenorrhea happens. So initially the corpus luteum is declining, then definitely the follicle will also not develop, because the follicles are the source for estrogenic activity. So estrogenic activity will decline. Estrogen, as it gives strength to the endometrium as well, so endometrial atrophy will get there. And in the last, there would be increased secretion of FSH and LH by the anterior pituitary, in order to be trying to act as a compensatory mechanism when there is declining follicular activity. So, as a negative feedback mechanism, and in order to respond to the declining estrogenic activity, more of the FSH will be secreted by the anterior pituitary. And also remember that this increased FSH is also our diagnostic laboratory investigations for the confirmation of menopause. So you can see how the levels decline. You see the levels decline, this start to be declining around the age of 35 to 50 years. So there is about 35% reduction from the age. Okay, so also the progesterone are also going to the lesser levels in the curves. At menopause, there is a relatively high estrogen compared to progesterone even. Okay, so this is also you should keep in mind that at the menopause, the estrogen is at a higher level as compared to the progesterone, and there is 75% reduction from the age from 35 to 50 for progesterone. For estrogen, it is about 35% reduction, but for progesterone, there would be a sharper decline. This is the comparison for the decline of hormones. Now, this is the thing I was telling you that FSH will increase about 50 times. It will be going to increase about 50 times. On the other hand, the LH is about 3 to 5 times increase, and therefore, as I told you before, that FSH increased FSH levels would be a diagnostic confirmation for the uh, menopause. So, menopausal urine has become an important commercial source of gonadotrophin. And this is also we want to emphasize, as in our previous lecture, we discussed about the human gonadotrophins which were used in cases of infidelity. I think you remember that we discussed about the artificial reproductive techniques where we were down regulating the cycles as part of the artificial reproductive techniques, and we were using HMGs, that is the human menopausal gonadotropins. And this was the etiology why we are using them, because they have higher levels of FSH. So because the menopausal women have highest levels of FSH, follicle stimulating hormones, which is part of that compensatory mechanism by the anterior pituitary, and this can be used as a beneficial role in cases of infertility for follicle stimulation. So, but in the later part of the menopause, the gonadotropin activity of the anterior pituitary then ceases, and eventually there is fall in the FSH level as the menopause progresses. So this is how, as we discussed before also, initially progesterone and estradiol levels you can see, but then you can see that there's a sharper decline as compared to the estradiol levels. You see, there is a little bit of plateau, and then there is a decline in the levels of estradiol as compared to the progesterone, where there is a sharper decline. On the other hand, you can see these are the average ages, and slowly and gradually the FSH is a bit rising in these phases. You can see this age variation, and then there is a sharper increase by the age of 40, 52, and so on, so that to be showing that there is a confirmation of menopause. On the other hand, the levels of increase in LH are a bit following the plateau curve. This is the same thing. The other hormones, as we were discussing, 50% reduction in androgen production as well, estrogen production, and some estrogen is produced by the ovaries still, and FSH appears in large concentration, and there are low estrogen levels. But this low estrogen level, as we are going to discuss further, they would be also a predisposing factor to osteoporosis and ischemic heart disease. Remember that the risk of ischemic heart disease or the cardiovascular diseases in the females in the reproductive age group is much lesser as compared to the males. But once the menopause arrives and there is no more estrogen in a the greater quantities in a female now, the risk of cardiovascular diseases of the male and the female then equalizes. So from this we conclude that estrogen has a protective role in cases of cardiovascular diseases, as we will discuss further. So, what are the risk factors for the early menopause? It can be early menopause idiopathically, surgical menopause or radiation. The ovary had to be removed due to cyst or some other pathology. There was chemotherapy, especially of alkylating agents, which affected the ovarian tissue. Smoking, caffeine, alcohol, they're all risk factors for early and premature menopause. Family history of menopausal diseases, if there is there. So in all these cases, these are the risk factors, also multiple, for decreased ovarian activity, as well as thus predisposing to the diseases which are encompassing around the menopausal age. So now we come up to the female genital tract, and what are the anatomical changes which are happening in the female genital tract at the time of menopause. Mainly is the atrophic changes. You see, main thing is the in all the genital organs, external or internal, we are going to see for the atrophy and regression, because they were maintained in their vascular state and healthy state because of main effect of the estrogens, and this is a hypoestrogenic state now. And from this we also conclude that estrogens are also a very healthy factor for good vascularization, for good vascular health as well, not only regarding the cardiovascular status even, but also the skin and the collagen. They're all having a good and beneficial effect due to the estrogens in the reproductive age groups, which we are being deprived of at the age of menopause. So what happens to the ovary? Definitely it will also show the atrophic changes. The size will also decrease also. And what about the fallopian tubes? They also will show the atrophic changes. Their cilia will disappear, and thus reducing all the chances of fertility as well. And what about the uterus? It will become smaller in size. Endometrium, its basal layer, will also be stained deeply with the gland and stroma. So what about the cervix? The cervix can appear smaller and shrunken. Vaginal fornices will disappear. Why? Because of the disappearance of the vaginal rugosities. Vaginal rugosities were present because of the good effect of the vascularization by the um, estrogen, and now as we are deprived of it, so there will be disappearance of the furrows. So epithelium will become pale, thin, and dry, and it is those as senile vaginitis. This is very important here. You have to have a knowledge about it, because clinically this is a very important condition, and we come across with many menopausal women with this problem. What they would um, present to us would be atrophic vaginitis. They would say that there is painful intercourse, and there is dyspareunia. There is multiple times there is spotting and excoriation at the vulval side, and this is all dependent because the estrogens are lost and there are no more underlying vascularization of the vaginal epithelium, and thus making it pale, thin, and dry. So therefore, senile vaginitis or atrophic vaginitis is an important clinical entity, and its etiology is lying in these changes which are happening. Vulva will also become atrophic. The skin of labia minora and vestibule will also become pale, thin, and dry because they have lost their vascularization. Labia majora also have reduced fat in it. The breast also has now lesser amount of uh, collagen tissues, and there will be uh, more pendulous breasts. Ligaments supporting the uterus and vagina will also lose their tone. This is very important because in the remaining lectures you are going to have a lecture on urogenital prolapse, and this is its physiology. And also remember that urogenital prolapse is also a disease of menopausal age most of the times. So where and what is the etiology lying behind is the loss of the tone of the internal sexual female genital organs of the uterus and the ligaments, and estrogen was a main force behind it. So as the levels of estrogen decline, there will be more risk of prolapse of the genital organs, stress incontinence of the urine, and fecal incontinence may be there. So, what are the menopausal symptoms? Three classic ways in which the menstrual period ceases is as follows. Either it is a sudden cessation, gradual diminution in the amount of blood loss uh, with each regular period until menstruation stops, and there is a gradual increase in the spacing of periods until they cease for at least a period of 1 year. These are sudden cessation is less likely. These other two manifestations are more likely, which we come across in the females. So, what are the other symptoms? 60 to 70% women go through the menopausal periods without problem. Rest needs guidance and treatment. So, there are hot flashes, uh, mood swings, irritability, low energy, weight gain, loss of libido, night sweats, difficult concentrating, sleeplessness, and bone loss. So, these are all the features which are accompanying that of the menopausal states. So, hot flashes. Early and acute symptom of estrogen deficiency. Hot flashes, it is the early and acute symptom of estrogen deficiency. These are waves of vasodilation affecting the face and neck and last for 2 to 5 minutes each. This may you may also have come across in your families. The elderly women around your family, in your family members, they do complain of these problems. It is a sort of a very distressing thing, but your good counseling and as a counseling that it is a part of the physiological phenomena may psychologically help these ladies. Followed by severe sweating occurring at night and may disturb the sleep. Sometimes preceded by headache, palpitation, and anginal pain may be felt even. So, mental depression due to lack of sleep, irritability, and lack of concentration can happen. And with the passage of time, severity of hot flashes then decreases because these were the fluctuating level of estrogens that were bringing it about. So, what are the causes of it? They can underlying causes can be estrogen as well as by noradrenaline, which disturbs the thermoregulatory system. Estrogen deficiency reduces hypothalamic endorphins, which release more norepinephrine and serotonin, and thus this norepinephrine and serotonin can affect the thermoregulatory system. This is how the cascade happens. The estrogen deficiency can reduce hypothalamic endorphins, and hypothalamic endorphins, when they are reduced, which will lead to release of more norepinephrine, and this norepinephrine then affects the thermoregulatory system. It leads to inappropriate heat loss mechanisms. So, what are the neurological things? The vasomotor symptoms, which are also dependent upon the declining estrogen levels, and paresthesia take the form of sensation of pins and needles in the extremities. What is atrophy, as we have discussed earlier, which affect the sexual function, and it leads to a decline in the sexual interest. Now, these were the early symptoms, early menopausal symptoms. In your textbooks also, there is different categorization of early, and then in the later part, and then at the end what symptoms do appears in a chronological order. So these are the symptoms. As I told you, the vasomotor symptoms are most of the earliest symptoms of menopause, and later what are the symptoms which can develop are the little later they can develop, but the dysuria, stress incontinence and urge, and recurrent infection. Because you know that the female genital tract is adjacent to and accompanying it to it is the urethra and the urinary system as well. So rather you would say urogenital system. These all get their force and strength by the estrogenization. And as the estrogenization is lost, not only the genital but also the urinary system is affected as well. So for the genital system, there is dry vagina, dyspareunia, loss of libido. This is how you can see. This is a healthy external genitalia in a reproductive age group female. And this is what happens in the later age group. You can see this fleshy part, this healthy part is gone. This is how the healthy urethra was, and now how it has become. The caruncle has developed, the skin is the mucosa here is affected. So these are all affected. Urethral caruncle is affected, has been developed. So these can all lead to external urethral opening has become not so circumscribed as it was in a healthy reproductive female. So these can all lead to urinary problems as well. Estrogen deficiency causes urethral crankle. This is how it is because the skin has been lost and the mucosa is exposed. Dysuria with or without infections, and urge incontinence can develop as well. Stress incontinence due to poor vascularity and loss of tone of internal urethral sphincter, because the tone and the vascularity is very much dependent upon estrogen. These symptoms are clubbed together under the term urethral syndrome. That when the dysuria happens, when multiple urethral infections are happening, urinary tract infections are happening, urgent incontinence is happening, female is feeling itching or burning sensation, these can all be clubbed under urethral syndrome. So in the genital system, atrophic vagina reduces the vaginal secretion and dry vagina causes dyspareunia. Loss of libido adds to sexual dysfunction. So complications or late squilling. The late symptoms can be, it is a normal development process, but the decline in estrogen levels can have clinical squilling. So what we till now we will write quickly again that the earlier part of the symptoms will be mostly of the vasomotor type. The later part of the symptoms would be mostly of the urogenital system which is affected, and then the late squilling can be mostly of bone related and cardiovascular. So the vasomotor symptoms can also be related to hypertension. Osteoporosis can appear in the form of arthritis, osteoporosis of vertebral bones, especially upper part of hip joint and wrist. You must have heard many times that a old lady had a hip fracture. She had a hip replacement. So it means that the upper part of the hip joint, the femoral head, and the ball and so this ball and socket joint is more vulnerable to the changes of osteoporosis in a menopausal lady. Similarly, the wrist fractures can also happen. Cardiovascular diseases. Ischemic heart disease in the form of MI and hypertension can occur, stroke, cardiac irregularities, and tachycardia, they can all happen. Urogenital atrophy, prolapse of the genital tract, stress incontinence of the urine, and anocolonic cancer, they can all happen. They can all have a greater possibility in cases of menopause. You see, this is a normal anatomy for the female genital tract, the bladder, the uterus, and this is the vagina, and this is a normal anatomy. Now, what is this? This is uterine prolapse. Because the ligaments have become loose, the tone has been lost. Now you can say this is the prolapse. Even vaginal prolapse can occur. The vaginal part can prolapse as well. For the cognitive decline and Alzheimer disease can also occur, as we will discuss later further about the effect of estrogen in the central, the effect of estrogen on the central nervous system. Cataract, glaucoma, macular degeneration can happen as part of the old age process, and skin changes and tooth decay can happen. This is how the skin is affected, you see, because of the loss of the collagen. So osteoporosis, it is an incipient, slowly progressing skeletal disorder as well. So with microarchitectural deterioration of the bone mass resulting in increased fragility and predilection to the fractures in the absence of any significant trauma. So definition by WHO is, as the BMD osteopenia, we label it when the bone mineral density is between 1 and 2.5 standard deviation below the young adult mean peak. And osteoporosis is when the bone mineral density is 2.5 or more below the standard deviation of mean young adult values. So this is how. This is a normal bone mineral density which you can see, and this is what happens in osteoporosis. You can see the difference. So this is how the bone remodeling it affects. There is most of the osteoclastic activity than the osteoblastic activity, and peak bone mass is around 35 to 40 years, and after this there is a slower decline, and it is accelerated in women 2% by cortical bone and 5% in the trabecular bone as well. You can see what happens to the spine in the old age. In elderly women, the vertebral fracture, gibbous formation, bent spine, and shortening of height happens. This is how it can happen. Hip fracture due to osteoporosis. You see, this is the femoral head, and then there's a diseased bone, and thus it gets fractured here. What are the other risk factors for osteoporosis, which we all should always keep in mind, because we can treat these other risk factors, and thus we can reduce the incidence. Help, although the menopause, it is an unavoidable happening in the life, but reduction of other risk factors, other confounding things, can just help us to reduce its risk much further. So family, there is a family history of osteoporosis, low calcium intake in diet, smoking and caffeine use. Then early menopause will happen definitely if the females are of lower BMI, they have surgical menopause before, radiation menopause. So these will thyrotoxicity, sedentary lifestyles, and women on different drugs. These are at more at a risk of accelerated bone defects and bone and fractures, and they have an accelerated risk for this. So therefore what we gather from the information of this risk factor is that we need to have more of the preventive tools, as well as avoidance of certain risk factors which we can do in our healthy lifestyles. So for the cardiovascular disease, estrogen is cardioprotective. As I told you before, it is antioxidant property as well. After menopause, what happens is that HDL decreases, which is for health, which is for good health for the heart. LDL increases and total cholesterol also increases. In estrogen deficiency, there is more risk of atherosclerosis, ischemic heart disease, and MIs. And the risk factors are also more in these women which are obese, which are already hypertensive, and with the previous thromboembolic events. Stroke, incidence of stroke also increases in the menopausal women. Now, what happens to skin changes? There is a collagen content is reduced, and it is more rapid in the first few years after menopause. And 30% of the skin collagen is lost within the first 5 years. The rate is 2% per year for the first 10 years after menopause. Now coming to the CNS. Estrogen receptors are abundant in the brain. Estrogen have a role in many brain processes, and its absence results in physiological and symptomatic changes. Estrogen is important for cerebral blood flow, cerebral glucose administration, synaptic activity, neuronal growth, survival of cholinergic neurons, and complex functions as cognition. The role of estrogen deficiency in postmenopausal depression, declining cognitive function, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease is not clear, but it carries a role. And therefore, we see that menopausal women are more prevalent with all these CNS diseases of dementia and Alzheimer, because as we discussed earlier, estrogen has a role in all these physiological functions of brain as well, and as well as antioxidant role. And other important, although with a lesser incidence, a complication which can happen in menopause is pyometria. Years after menopause, the women may develop senile pyometria when there is a cervical stenosis. As we discussed earlier in the anatomical changes, with the cervix, there is a stenotic, it becomes atrophic. So if it becomes stenotic, then there can be a senile pyometria. And then drainage by cervical dilatation under general anesthesia has to be carried out. Now, coming to the physical examination of a lady who comes to you, presents to you with menopause, with any of the complaints which she has, but how you are going to approach them. The clinical findings vary greatly depending on the time elapsed since menopause, because, as we discussed earlier, there are certain conditions which appear earlier, then in the later part, and then there are the late squealies. So it depends upon the time when the presentation is with you and the severity of the estrogen deficiency. And who were more estrogen deficient, as we discussed previously in the risk factors. The skin would be thin and dry, the breast loses its turgor, the labia are small, the uterus becomes much smaller, the muscles of the pelvic floor are looser in tone and are thin, and the prolapse may be present. Laboratory diagnosis we need to carry out. If there is no confirmation, these are the part of our diagnostic workup, but where and when they are required. So the treatment depends upon the counseling, and it encompasses non-hormonal therapy and hormonal replacement therapies in the cases where there is indicated. So the counseling would be, the women often develop pregnancy and cancer phobia, so they are afraid at that time about it. So our duty is to have their complete examination and investigation where they are required. Pelvic ultrasound can be required if there are other accompanying problems like that of the postmenopausal bleeding or any other pathological event, as will be discussed later in the other lectures. And estrogen FSH levels are required to be done if the HRT has to be considered. The advice on contraception is necessary until the menopause is well established and amenorrhea has lasted for about 1 year, and the couple is advised mostly barrier methods of contraception. Now, what other important beneficial things in a healthy lifestyle which we can advise them would be calcium, vitamins, especially vitamin D as well, and the soya beans, because it is has been found out that the soya beans are a good source of estrogens, of the natural estrogens. So when the woman is declining of her own estrogens, then the natural food estrogens can help her in a part. So weight bearing exercises and delay can delay the onset of osteoporosis, and the exercises are definitely helpful for the bone health. Now, what about the non-hormonal therapy? Over-the-counter vaginal lubricants are not of much help, and therefore, for the vaginal symptoms to be relieved, they need to be replaced by the estrogen deficiency with oral or local estrogens. So for the non-hormonal therapy, lead a healthy lifestyle. As we discussed earlier, smoking, alcohol, caffeine, they're all injurious for the health as well. So regular exercise help protect against cardiovascular diseases as well as osteoporosis, and exercise also has known mental um, and sleeplessness, which can affect at this life. So what about the hormone replacement therapy? The most important thing to remember about hormone replacement therapy is not the drugs or the regime, but to remember is that not all women require HRT. 70 to 85% of women remain healthy. They need only a good counseling, good nutrition, a healthy lifestyles, and reassurance. So it will definitely help them in this part of their life. Only a remaining little number of women need hormone replacement therapy when their symptoms or their worries are not dealt only by the uh, lifestyle modification. So, what that are the indications for HRT? Women having severe climacteric symptoms, either vasomotor, urinary, or sexual disharmony, who have established osteoporosis, which is confirmed on X-ray and bone mineral density measurements. So this you should keep in mind. The women with intractable climacteric symptoms like of vasomotor, urinary, or sexual disharmony. All asymptomatic high risk women should also have. These were the women which were symptomatic in these regards. But the second category is the high risk women, although asymptomatic, but they need to be given help to prevent any untoward event to happen. Like the women which were already having a premature menopause because of any, either because of any underlying cause, family history of osteoporosis, there were thin, small, or sedentary women, poor diet, excess alcohol. They were previously also suffering from CVD, cardiovascular diseases, Alzheimer, or chronic cancer, or the family history. They had corticosteroids or other medications for a longer term use. They had previously high urinary calcium or creatinine values or low serum plasma estradiol. So these were also all high risk women which need to be have HRT at the time of menopause to prevent further complications. Now we should also be keeping in view what is the contraindication of HRT, because HRT is the hormonal replacement therapy and it has in itself the hormones. So in cases of breast cancer, uterine cancer, or family history of cancer, they are contraindicated. Um, if there is a previous history of any thromboembolic episode, definitely HRT is contraindicated. And in the liver and gallbladder diseases. So, what are the drugs used in HRT? Um, as the hormone name indicates, it is hormone replacement therapy. So, definitely the drugs would be hormones, which are estrogen, progesterone, and other drugs like Tivolone, Tamoxifen, soya, and bisphosphonate. And we will discuss them in detail now individually. So, there can be a short-term estrogen therapy for the symptomatic relief of vasomotor symptoms, and the smallest effective dose is for 3 to 6 months. It can definitely help. Oral Premarin conjugated equine estrogen, it is 0.625 mg daily, or ethinyl estradiol also comes, Avalon, and these are micronized estrogens and they are effective. For the estrogen therapy also, it can combine with medroxyprogesterone daily for 10 to 12 days given each month, or combined hormone therapy in the form of 2 mg of 17 beta estradiol and 1 mg of norethistron acetate can be given. For dyspareunia, urethral syndrome, and senile vaginitis, local estrogen cream, as we discussed earlier in the anatomy, and I emphasized you at that time, this is the problem that we come across many a times clinically. That women present with this urethral syndrome, senile vaginitis, when they say they have spotting, they have painful, they have burning, feeling of burning and itching and painful at the vulval site. So in these cases, local estrogen creams are very helpful. And they can be used 10 to 12 days each month for about 3 to 6 months. They are short acting, and for them the cyclic progesterone is not required as well. And for the postmenopausal women, withdrawal bleeding is not required. So then the other forms for the estrogen preparations are a ring in the form of vaginal ring as well, like estring. It releases 5 to 10 micrograms per month in 3 months. Estrogen long-term therapy for delaying the osteoporosis reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease beyond 8 to 10 years. Um, this is how the estrogen can be used in long-term therapy. The earlier we discussed were its short-term therapies for especially for the vasomotor symptoms, but for the long-term therapy, when we use estrogen, our main underlying purpose is to delay the osteoporosis and the risk of cardiovascular diseases. This is the main long-term use of estrogen, and the route for this long-term usage is either oral, transdermal, or implants. The oral preparations of estrogens, as we discussed earlier, come in the form of conjugated equine estrogens, ethinyl estradiol, and micronized estrogens. Now, what about the estrogen oral? Advantages: it is easy, it is cheap, it is good control, it gives a good control because it is a short half-life. But high doses are required, and they have a first pass effect in the liver as well for the oral preparations, and they have to be taken daily. For the transdermal preparations of estrogens, patches and gel are available, and especially the gel are improving the collagen in the skin as well. And the patches are also used, which contain 3 to 4 milligram, and they release 50 microgram per 24 hour, and they are used twice weekly. This is what the patches are used twice weekly. So for the transdermal route, what are the advantages we have? They are low dose, they are pure estradiol, avoids intestine and liver metabolism, reduces serum triglycerides and insulin resistance. They are very beneficial in this health effect as well, and no thromboembolic risk or hypertension. So you see, this is a very good advantage of the transdermal patches. Regarding the disadvantages, they are more expensive. They are not well tolerated in the warm climates, and they have a variable absorption sometimes, and they are not easily or readily available as well. So, what about the implants? Implants have to be implanted into the skin. As the name indicates, they are subcu implants of estradiol in different preparations. They are available, and for the 6 monthly um, dosage, they are given. They are also pure estradiol, and they have high level of estradiol. They will produce high levels of estradiol in the blood, and they avoid first pass effect also, and they have better response in severe osteoporosis. So for the severe osteoporosis, estrogen implants are very helpful. And regarding their disadvantages, they need surgical procedure. Sometimes absorption is unable to be controlled, and they are difficult to remove the palate. So what about the progesterones? Progesterone, they have a role in HRT as well. They prevent endometrial hyperplasia and cancer in non-hysterectomized women, where we have to give not the pure estrogen, especially non-hysterectomized ladies. We have to join them with the progesterone also to prevent the endometrial hyperplasia due to the effect of unopposed estrogen. So the implants may replace the estrogen where estrogen is contraindicated or sensitive. It prevents the breast cancer, improves bone mineral density, and Pramarid N in the oral preparation of 2.5 mg is given. Medroxyprogesterone and dofestrone are also the other preparations. Mirena IUCD, which is a local progesterone releasing device, can also be produced, and the hormone inside it is the progesterone. Progesterone is the levonorgestrel. So progesterone has a definite role in the combined HRT. Now, what are the risks of using hormone replacement therapy? It will cause vaginal bleeding, thromboembolism, and endometrial cancer, breast cancer due to progesterone if HRT is taken for longer period of time, and also the effect of HRT in the cardiovascular diseases is established as well. Now, the other preparations of HRT, that was the previously we discussed about the hormonal preparation of HRT. As we discussed that under the heading of HRT hormone replacement therapy, we have hormones plus other different preparations. So for the tibolone, it is a synthetic derivative of 19-nortestosterone. The important thing is it is not a pure estrogenic itself, but it is a derivative of 19-nortestosterone. It has a weak estrogenic and progesterogenic action as well as androgenic also. So all the three hormones with their weak action are present in tibolone. It can cause endometrial hyperplasia, elevates the mood, relieves the vasomotor symptom, improves sex drive, and reduces the bone resorption. So it has good effects on all the signs and symptoms of menopause. It has a cardioprotective role as well, but the side effects are weight gain, edema, tenderness in the breast, GI symptoms, and vaginal bleed. So, keeping in view, the side effects are of lesser severity as compared to the beneficial effects which we are getting from the Tibolol. Then comes Riloxifene. It is a non-steroidal component and it is a SERM, selective estrogen reuptake modulator. So it reduces the risk of fractures by 50%, especially in the vertebra, and BMD, the bone mineral density, by 2 to 3%. It causes 10% reduction in the total cholesterol and LDL and increases the HDL levels. It does not raise the level of triglycerides, so cardioproductive for the long term. It reduces the osteoporosis as well. So Raloxifene has a long-term effect, especially for the late sequelae of both the cardiovascular and bone-related harmful effects of menopause. This drug is not only used in the menopausal ladies to prevent this sequelae, but also in older age group in the male and female equally it can be used to prevent the effect of osteoporosis, because the males are also in the 60 to 70 year group especially, they are also more prone to effects of osteoporosis, and further increasing the risk of cardiovascular disease as well. So in all these cases, Raloxifene is not only for the menopausal ladies, but for the older age group in both sexes, it is equally helpful. So it has the side effects of hot flashes, cramps, venous thrombosis, and retinopathy. Raloxifene is but contraindicated in cases of venous thrombosis, hepatic dysfunction, and it should be stopped if there is 72 hours before when the surgery is planned. Indomethacin, naproxen, ibuprofen, diazepam, they have with these drugs it has interactions. Now, another group for HRT would be the bisphosphonate. It reduces the bone resorption through the inhibition of osteoclastic activity. So, as we discussed earlier, that in the menopause, the osteoclastic activity overshadows the osteoblastic activity. So, what is the effect of bisphosphonate is that it reduces the osteoclastic activity and thus resorption of bone is inhibited. It is available in the form of alendronate and 10 mg per kg of the body weight, followed by a gap of 2 to 3 months, and this course is repeated for 10 such cycles. Um, Calcium is not given along with it because it decreases the absorption, and overdose can lead to hypocalcemia. And as I discussed before, for raloxifene, similarly, bisphosphonates can also be used for the both sexes in older age group. Another important entity when we discuss about menopause, as we discussed earlier, was about the premature menopause and delayed menopause. So previously, as we discussed, these were all about the menopause, its symptoms, its signs, the difficulties we encounter, and how they are categorized. What about the earlier, later, and the late sequelae, and how they can be encountered and can be managed, and what is the role of HRT, about its indication and contraindication. So the other important thing is related to menopause. It's two other uh, forms which we need to know about it also is with the premature menopause and delayed menopause, because clinically we come across many ladies which present to us with these symptoms. So what about the premature menopause? As we discussed earlier also a bit about it, and you have also discussed about in the secondary amenorrhea, it is the ovarian failure occurring before the age of 40 years, and secondary amenorrhea for at least 3 months with raised FSH levels and low estradiol levels in a woman under 40 years of age. Now, premature menopause to label, to diagnose, and to counsel a lady or a family that she has entered into a premature menopause is a clinical dilemma, because no women would be readily ready uh, to have about to learn that she is entered into the menopause in an earlier period. It will be a psychological feeling of trauma for her as well. Uh, then in that cases, your evaluation is very important and your confirmation is very important to reach a final diagnosis that she has certainly entered into a menopause, but at a bit of earlier part of the age. So in this case, the value of raised FSH is very important for confirmation and diagnosis. So etiology can be of chromosomal abnormalities, as in cases of hypergonadotrophic hypogonadism, or ovarian dysgenesis, as in cases of Turner syndrome. So autoimmune diseases also contribute about 30 to 60% cases of premature menopause, especially in cases of diseases like hypo and hyperparathyroidism, Addison disease. And in these cases of autoimmune diseases, CD8 and CD4 autoimmune diseases, lymphocytes, these can affect the ovarian tissue as well. Other etiological factors can be tuberculosis, smoking, radiation, and chemotherapy, and hysterectomy, which has to be done due to any uterine disease. So, pathophysiology, lack of receptors is explained as the cause of non-response of follicles. Clinical features would be the same as case of menopause, especially psychological in this case, because she is not yet prepared to enter into the age of menopause, and the menopause has developed earlier. And pseudocytosis, she can have a feeling that, oh, maybe because of the pregnancy she is not having the periods, but actually it was the premature menopause which had happened. Much investigation, we see that FSHF level of more than 40 international units is the diagnostic for it. Also, you need to have a complete workup. So therefore, thyroid function tests, thyroid antibodies, blood sugar levels, BMD studies, and ultrasound and prolactin levels can be required, but where and ever they are necessary. They are not a hard and fast rule to be done in every patient. They should be done where and ever where they are clinically indicated. This is very important because the expenses for the patient have always to be kept in mind. So the complications are the same, but they can appear earlier in cases of premature menopause. There are risks of osteoporosis and cardiovascular diseases, which increases in case of premature menopause. So management, as we discussed earlier, we can help them in cases as we did in the menopausal women. An important challenge we meet is when a lady has infertility as well, and now she is entering into the premature menopause, and she was planning for the pregnancy. Then it becomes a dilemma to be dealt with, and in those cases, ovulation induction and other helps can be given. Another entity is when there is a late menopause, when the menstruation continues beyond 42 years. And late menopause occurs in women with fibroids and is seen in women who develop endometrial cancer. It means what this indicates to us is where there is already hyperestrogenized state. Often it is constitutional as well. Endometrial biopsies requires to rule out endometrial pathology. So, what are the key points and what is the take home message for us is that menopause isn't an illness, it's a natural part of life. It happens when the body stops making certain hormone, leading being the estrogen. Symptoms of menopause can be distressing, but one does not have to put up with them. You can get help. The main treatment for menopause is hormone replacement therapy, but if you don't want to take this, there are other treatments that might also help. And among them, the lifestyle modification, healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, exercise, they are definitely helpful in around 80 to 85% of cases. HRT would be needed in a very lesser number of patients, but also while we say this, we should also keep in mind that HRT should be and must be given to the ladies with distressing features. Why they are going to be always in a distressed state, why they have to cope with their distressing situation, they should be helped out with HRT. So there are things you can do yourself to help relieve the symptoms of menopause, as we discussed, with the lifestyle modification. So thank you very much for your listening.